Calaroga Shark Media.
Hi, Lee Ho. I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Bourbon entrepreneur Jim Gaffigan tweeted, "Catch me in this all-star lineup at the Hollywood Bowl May 1st and 2nd, part of the Netflix is a Joke Festival. In the image, which looks a little rat-packy, Nate Bargatze, Sebastian Manscalco, Jerry Seinfeld, and Jim Gaffigan. We're going to be hearing a lot from Jerry in the upcoming weeks as he's got this Pop Tarts movie coming out. GQ did a profile of Jerry I'll pick away at over the next few days. Jerry talked about the Curb finale, and he said, "As I drove home that night, my scalp was just tingling. I thought what we had done was just the coolest, wildest, most remarkable thing." Says it's the callback to end all callbacks. When you have that joke that was set up 25 years ago and then paid off 25 years later, how do you even describe something like that? I'll describe it. It was okay. Sorry, Jerry. Switching to Pop Tarts, GQ had a bunch of questions for Jerry, and I'll bust out, I haven't done this in a while, half-ass angry Jerry Seinfeld impression. GQ asked, "What's so funny about breakfast?" "Everything! I love the great dumbness of life." GQ, "There's dumbness everywhere. Why do you keep returning to this corner of it?" "There's dumbness everywhere, but I really do love cereal. I love the wetness, the crunchiness. I love spoons. I love bowls. When I was single in my kitchen, I would keep a bowl of the spoon, and my friends would laugh. Why would I take it out of the bowl? That's where it's going." GQ, Larry David told me that it was because there's a K in breakfast. Jerry says everybody knows that K is the funniest letter. Gary Goldman said that recently. Jerry said, "Oh yeah, everybody knows K or C. It's the sound. When you're trying to get people's attention in a crowded nightclub, they can hear K." All right, Jerry, why a movie? Because they wouldn't put me in Mad Men. I love that kind of comedy. I love office comedies. I love stupid people in suits, and it was COVID. I had nothing to do, so I got talked into it. It wasn't my idea. Seinfeld wasn't my idea either. I kept getting dragged into things and surrounded by the most amazing people. These movie people are unbelievable. They're insane. Like we had a prop master. She had a room, and it was floor-to-ceiling toys and bikes and clothes, everything from that era. Everybody does their job 150%. It's weird. Jerry's getting some pickup from this interview, his comments on the movie business industry. Jerry said, "They're so dead serious. They don't have any idea that the movie business is over. They have no idea." That is making the trades. Jerry says, "Film does not occupy the pinnacle in the social cultural hierarchy that it did for most of our lives. When a movie came out, if it was good, we all went to see it. We all discussed it. We quoted lines and scenes we liked. Now we're walking through a fire hose of water just trying to see. Disorientation replaced the movie business. Everyone I know in show business every day is going, what's going on? How do you do this? What are we supposed to do now? I've done enough stuff that I have my own thing, which is more valuable than it's ever been. Stand-up is like you're a cabinet maker and everybody needs a guy who's good with wood. There's trees everywhere, but to make a nice table, it's not so easy. So the metaphor is if you have good craft and craftsmanship, you're kind of impervious to the whims of the industry. Audiences are now flocking to stand-up because it's something you can't fake. It's like platform diving. You could say you're a platform diver, but in 2 seconds, we can see if you are or you aren't. So that's interesting. Later in this segment, I'm going to play a clip from Rogan. So just remember what Jerry just said there, because it's going to be relevant later. Jerry said, "That's what people like about stand-up. They can trust it. Everything else is fake." Unfrosted. I can't remember that. I keep calling it Pop Tarts movie. Unfrosted, Netflix, May 3rd. Random stray thought. I threw it here in my script helper. Remember Conan O'Brien just dropped a travel show on HBO Max, HBO Max? Did that have any impact on popular culture at all? Other than a few days before, there were a ton of Conan articles, but did anyone watch it? Is anyone talking about it? It just kind of came and went and happened. And remember when Conan gave up the TBS show, it was like, oh, he's going to have a show on HBO, and we were waiting years for it. It just kind of happened. Does anyone care? Gabe Iglesias has inked a 2 stand-up deal with Netflix. The first will tape at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida, July 12th through the 14th. No dates on those. The 800-pound gorilla had a bunch of people at Moon Tower, and they reviewed a few shows, and I thought I'd share what they said. As for Shane Gillis, they said he's handling the transition into being an arena comic with certain ease. On stage, he talked about what goes into picking an intro song, why he should be a high school football coach. We've heard him do that before. Accidentally sending nude Snapchat photos. Different topic. When you stop being friends with your mom, and opening a Down syndrome coffee shop, as well as a joke that Lorne Michaels wouldn't let him tell in his monologue. 800-pound gorilla writes, "If there's an earnestness to Gillis on stage, there's anything but when it comes to Martin Urbano. If you've never seen Urbano stand up before, it's far easier to explain by recommending you watch a few clips first. By design, Urbano's act consists of a persona that doesn't necessarily translate well into reading." Oh, I'm sure my third-hand recap of this show is going to really convey what he does. That's because the beauty of what he does is in the delivery, as he satirizes the bro culture and misogyny, and much more that you need to witness in order to fully grasp what he's doing. So even if I play you audio, I guess we have to go see Martin Urbano. They also went to see Birbiglia. Birbiglia has that gift as a storyteller to keep you truly invested from start to finish, so much that it doesn't feel like it's been a full hour by the time he's done. It's effortless. That was precisely the vibe we got from his show last weekend. The show was completely sold out, comprised of his large fan base, some of whom had told me they've seen him many times before. Some of the topics Birbigs did included what a different time it is for parenting versus how when he was raised. Okay, I mean, I hear that kind of material at the bar every week. I hear it in my car on the weekend. I see it on the internet. Hopefully Birbigs did the good version of that. That is not the most original material. You know, back in the 70s, we just all piled into the station wagon and we didn't have seatbelts in the back seat. And Dad slammed the brakes and he went flying in the glass. And it was like, you've heard that, right? You've heard that bit? But I don't know. Birbigs probably did a good version of it. The emotion of being a parent, realizing how little he actually knows, balancing the calendar to make time for your spouse, how the DARE program is a double negative. We dare you not to do drugs. And a parody song he wrote in high school to the tune of Bust a Move, titled Bust Them Drugs. Andrew Santino's going to get a pop this week. He's going on Trais Kelce's New Heights podcast. Santino shared a video on his Instagram story where he's with Trais Kelce. You know, Trais Kelce is dating Taylor Swift. Now, one time at the Golden Globes, Jo Kpy made a joke about Taylor, but I'm not playing it for you because you don't appreciate recurring jokes. Santino discussed how he came up with his Cheeto nickname. We also learned from Santino how he came up with the nickname Cheeto. All right, here's that clip of Joe Rogan that I mentioned yesterday. The guest here is, I've frozen his name. I wanted to say Chris Tucker. It's not Chris Tucker. It's Tucker Carlson. Two totally different people. Doesn't really matter that Tucker's there, but that's the other voice you hear. Joe Rogan talking about joke thieves and then how Chris Rock uses the writer's room, and this will take you all the way to the break.
I think creativity is in everybody. It's just a matter of how
100% it's in everybody. It just requires honesty.
Yeah.
And the impediment to creativity is lying.
Sure. And yeah, I used to say that about joke thieves. That one of the real problems with joke thieves is when they get caught and then they have to write their own material. And the problem is they don't understand the language. They just know how to say the sounds. Like if you told me what to say in French, I can't speak French, but if you told me what to say and I practice it and I said it right, you would think, wow, that guy speaks French.
Yes.
So that's what comedy's like. So if you got a guy who knows how to repeat other people's jokes, but he doesn't know how to create them. See, comedy's one of the rare things where someone, like you get a guy like Shane Gillis, that guy writes his own stuff. He edits it, he thinks it out in his head, he performs it, he produces it, he changes the order of things.
I love that.
It's a complete, everybody does it pretty much the same way. There's a few guys that hire writers, and that's honorable. There's nothing wrong with hiring a writer. And it's also, it gives jobs to other comics because some comics are just really good writers and they're not so good at performing. And so people will work on stuff, they'll collaborate on stuff. Like Chris Rock would do this thing where he would hire comics and they didn't write the jokes for him, but they would be like guys he would bounce stuff off. So he would have his ideas, he would go on stage, and then after his set, they would all meet and they would talk about the set. And, you know, guys would have taglines like, you could say this, oh, great, and they write that down, they're adding. So it's a collaboration. So you have the master, you have Chris Rock, who is so open-minded and intelligent and humble that he brings in other masters and says, tell me what I'm doing wrong.
So the Webby Awards happened. All of a sudden, there was a press release going, hey, here's everybody who won the Webby Awards. And I'm kind of eye-rolling this thing because you have to pay to enter, and they give away so many awards. It's like, are you even really winning anything, or is it just, best podcast released by Johnny Mac on a Wednesday? The nominees are this episode and last week's episode. Give us the $250 so you can be in our little thing. I'm just going to read comedy-related ones, and this will give you an idea for how many trillions, might be an exaggeration, trillions of categories there are. The Webby Award for comedy, show, parentheses, podcast. All right, comedy podcast. What show do you think won the Webby Award? You can guess for the rest of the year, and you're never going to come up with this. Never, ever, ever. I've never even heard of this show, and aside from, like, I suck, I'll remind you, I work in podcasting. I'll remind you that I've hosted this show for almost 5 years now, and before that, all my time at Sirius. But for the last 5 years, every day, I Google the words comedy and comedian, and I must suck because I've never heard of The Bald and the Beautiful with Trixie and Katya. Anyway, that won the Webby Award for Best Comedy Show Podcasts. The People's Voice Award for comedy, shows, parentheses, podcast went to Conan O'Brien. The Webby Award for featured guest, individual episodes, podcasts, went to Cat Williams. Yeah, that was pretty good. The Webby Award for comedy, individual episodes, podcasts, went to Las Culturistas. Bowen Yang, Matt Rogers. All right, so that's already 4 things that are like made-up categories. Can we just do like best comedy podcast and be done with it? Saturday Night Live won the Webby Award for events and live streams, general video, video. The Simpsons, Maggie Simpson and Rogue Not Quite won the Webby Award for comedy, branded entertainment, video. 21 spelled out and then 21 the number. So 2121, a Black AF scripted audio comedy, won the Webby Award for Best Indie Podcast, Limited Run, features, podcasts. You excited? Jon Stewart brought out his fastball on Monday. I'm sure it's a combination of he feels passionate about this and the numbers are down a little bit. But he took a shot at the rest of the media. A segment called America's Most Tremendously Wanted, Jon Stewart said that the current trial of Donald Trump will obviously be a test of the fairness of the American legal system, but it's also a test of the media's ability to cover Donald Trump in a responsible way, a task they've acknowledged that they've performed poorly in the past. He then played some clips from people on CNN and MSNBC. He then mocked them and said, "So brave, well done." Stewart said, "Perhaps if we limit the coverage to the issues at hand and try not to create an all-encompassing spectacle of the most banal of details, perhaps that would help." Then he played some clips of cable news showing Trump arriving and leaving court each day. Jon said, "Seriously, we're going to follow this guy to court every day? Are you trying to make this O.J. Simpson? It's not a chase. He's commuting." So the media's the very first attempt on the first day of the trial at self-control, it failed. Here at the Basement Podcast Company, we've actually ramped up the ballot podcasts. We figure Jon Stewart's going to get mad at us, but we figured, Trump plus porn star plus trial, probably some good comedy there. So we're going to be putting out episodes daily for a little bit. Ballot, wherever you get your shows. Sydney Comedy Festival begins. I know you're like, John, you never talk about Australian comedy. Well, we got another festival. My takeaway here is, so unlike the Melbourne Festival, where every day I clicked on the website and I was like, oh, this thing hasn't loaded yet. Today I actually prepared. I pulled 3 days worth of clips for myself. So I have my act together today. And I'll tell you the same thing I said for Melbourne. Something's broken in the United States because I'm playing these clips of comedians. The comedians happen to be women, and they're all wonderful. So something's wrong in the States where women comedians are underrepresented or not getting a shot, or there's something in the water in Australia. I don't know, but I'm looking at the Australian comedy scene and going, wow, there are a lot of really funny women. One of the women at the Sydney Festival, and I'm not stupid, she's not Australian, the festival is Australian, is Fern Brady. You watched her on Netflix the other day, didn't you? Well, she's at the Sydney Festival. The Scotsman said she's absolutely fearless. There's nowhere she won't go and nothing she won't say on stage, and she'll switch from snarling and menacing to sweet and girlish in an instant. The Evening Standard, 4 stars. She is distinctly acerbic and scathing, but most importantly, hugely entertaining too. Let's listen.
I finally got diagnosed autistic. It's actually been really hard for me because there's not a lot of representation of hot women within the autistic community. So be the change you want to see in the world, I guess. It's just me and Greta Thunberg representing. And it makes sense because a lot of stuff people do seems really alien to me. Like, a lot of my friends are getting married now, and I keep saying to my boyfriend, who's like my translator for human behaviour, why are all these people we know getting married? And he justifies it the way a lot of people justify it. He says they're getting married, Fern, because they want the opportunity to declare their love for one another in front of all their family and friends. I'm laughing because I would literally have to be on ecstasy to do something like that. Yeah, why don't I make a sex tape, but with my emotions?
That was a good clip. That's actually better than the Netflix teaser that I played the other day. All right, Kirsty Wiebeck. I think I played her for Melbourne, and I think this is a different clip. I'm getting old. The brain fills up. Her show is called I'll Be the Judge of That. She's recently learned more about her relationship with farmers. She's had a harrowing experience with classical music, and a special thing happened to her at the airport. The Sydney Morning Herald says consistently enjoyable and impossible to dislike. Let's listen.
I was in the supermarket recently and a small child yelled out at me, "Hey, you look like a man." And I said, "Can you please tell that to my boss so it's reflected in my pay?" Just like, boom, just like, just got him. I don't even have a boss, you know. Like in your face, in aisle 4 you'll find the tea, coffee and some sass about the gender pay gap. I don't mind things like that though. Like sometimes I like to walk into the Maya makeup counter just to see 4 sales assistants have no idea what to do. I was in an Uber recently and the driver said to me, "I thought your name was Kirsty." And I said, "It is." And I thought, this is going to be good. And he said, yeah, right, I thought Kirsty was a girl's name. And there was not enough time to explain that gender is a social construct. So I said, "It is a girl's name."
And in today's non-controversy controversy from the New York Post, a British comedian has sparked debate after mocking his pregnant wife's walk. Daniel O'Reilly, who goes by Dapper Laughs, filmed his heavily pregnant wife in a supermarket while making fun of her gait. The TikTok has gone viral. Boy, I hope the government doesn't shut down TikTok, because then we won't get videos like this anymore. In the TikTok video, Daniel asks why pregnant women walk like they're about to start a scrap. She looks like she's just come out of a pub, had 10 Stella beers, and she's deep on the pub grub. The wife tells the comedian to shut up. Some of the comments. One user wrote, "Because we're in pain, baby is heavy and pushing down." Another user said, "Because there's literally a bowling ball between my legs." Someone else said, "It's a level of discomfort you can't understand unless you've lived it." Another said, "I was about to get defensive being a heavily pregnant woman, but I'm crying laughing." And that is your comedy news for today. I put out another Substack on Tuesday, and there's another one out on Wednesday. The link is in the show notes. It's mcdpod.substack.com. If you want to read me rambling about various topics, yesterday was about Netflix streaming. Wednesdays is about, this whole thing with Meghan Markle and her selling jam. It is so entertaining. We've been covering that over on the Palace Intrigue podcast. But if you want to read about it, that's in the Substack today. The Substack is free. So, subscribe and the email will show up in your inbox and you could be like, "I'm sick of Johnny Mac, just delete it." That's your comedy news for today. See you tomorrow.